right. Hello, hello. I do see people trickling in. Apologies for getting this webinar started late, but we're so happy to have you joining us this afternoon. We hope that you have been able to enjoy all of the content and conversations and discussion that our amazing partners are putting together as a part of this Atlanta Education Expo. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Kristina Newton. I am the founder and executive director of Hope for Youth Incorporated, also known as HYPE. And we are also the official co-host of this expo, along with Tara at Tech. And so I'm really excited to be moderating this conversation today with three amazing organizations who really specialize in student support. And we, given what's been going on this past year, really excited to, kind of hear from them around what student support looks like, and to be able to showcase how what they've been doing for years, has really become elevated and highlighted now. But, even as we move forward, the work that they do in schools and partnering with teachers and in supporting students is going to be critical. And even more necessary and important. So I hope you guys are able to stick around. This will be an amazing discussion and conversation. For those of you who are active on social media, you guys can continue to stay engaged and live tweet with us on Twitter using the hashtag ATL Expo. And if you are not able to make any of the live discussions, we will be posting all of the replays on the website, the educationatl.com website. So everything will be available for replay to you as well. So given that we did start a little bit late, I am going to kick it off. Again, we have three amazing organizations, Achieve Atlanta, College Aim, and OneGoal with us today. The way that this moderated panel is going to go is we'll give each organization 5 minutes just to kind of introduce themselves to you, let you guys know who they are, who they serve, share a little bit about some of the work that they do here in Metro Atlanta and, maybe even across Georgia. And after each of the organizations present their kind of introduction pitch, then we'll have some Q&A back and forth amongst us here on the panel. But we also want you to be involved and included in the conversation. So if you have any questions, if there's anything in particular that you really would like answered, or if you just want to give feedback or a +1 on things that is being discussed here on the panel, feel free to use the chat. We want to see the chat, kind of pop in and engagement going on there. And you can also use the Q&A feature in Zoom to ask questions to the panelists that we can either respond to directly by typing it back, by answering it through typing it inside the chat, or answering it live. So we are going to kick it off, our introductions with Achieve Atlanta. We have Vet Van Diver, who's the Director of Marketing and Communications at Achieve Atlanta. And we're going to go ahead and let her share about what the organization is doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Vet Van Diver, and I'm really excited to be here with you. Our executive director is Tina Fernandez, and she wishes she could be here, but it's her daughter's birthday today, so she is celebrating that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and share my screen. I have a short presentation. It won't be all of these slides. It'll just be the first couple. So Achieve Atlanta is a nonprofit organization, and we work specifically with Atlanta Public Schools students and their students, and also graduates of Atlanta Public Schools, to get them to college and through college. So our goal is to help Atlanta Public School students earn a post-secondary credential. We were founded in 2015. And since then, our work has expanded over time. I just wanted to start by sharing some of the demographics for the students that we work with. So you can see the number of students enrolled, some of the statistics in terms of chronic absenteeism, the economic challenges that some of our students and families face, and also the racial demographic breakdown of our students. As many of you know, Atlanta does have one of the country's lowest rates of social mobility. And a child born into the lowest income quintile in Atlanta has about a 4.5% chance of moving to the top quintile. So our vision for Achieve Atlanta is that Atlanta be a city where race and income no longer predict post-secondary success and upward mobility. And our mission, as I shared before, is to help APS students access, afford, and earn post-secondary credentials. So we do this through cross-sector collaboration and a range of partners. In the high school level, we work with Atlanta Public Schools, College Advising Corps, College Board, and of course, OneGoal. It's on this call today. And we also work with the In-Between, which helps our students financially, Scholarship America, the Community Foundation, and the scholarship that we provide to all of our students that we call scholars. And once our students are in college, we work with higher education institutions, and we also work with Beyond 12 and EduTech to provide that support for our scholars as they're working toward their degrees. So here's a little snapshot of our scholars. We have about 3,800 scholars that are attending almost 300 different colleges. About 94% of our scholars are Black or Latinx. 1/3 of APS graduating seniors do become scholars, and 97% of our scholars are Pell Grant eligible. So in terms of some of the work that we do as an organization, both at the high school level and in the college level, is increasing FAFSA completions, working on increasing the number of seniors that apply for 3 or more colleges, and also increasing the seamless college enrollment rate for high school graduates. And you can see those improvements from the time our organization started to our most recent data that we have available. The other huge piece of our work is the Achieve Atlanta Scholarship. And so since our founding, we have awarded more than $27 million in Achieve Atlanta scholarships to APS graduates. And we also started an emergency grant program last year with Scholarship America. This was definitely kicked off due to the pandemic because many of our students were facing emergencies that they never faced before. And many of them were at risk for stopping out of school. So our emergency grants helped to keep them going to pursue and complete their degree. So just here's some information comparing our students' persistence rates to other University System of Georgia students. That's the USG. And as of January 2020, we have 366 Achieve Atlanta graduates. So those are students who have gone on to complete their post-secondary credentials. And we're excited to add many more graduates to that this coming May, once we have more students who will be graduating. And that is all for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vet. And my apologies for mispronouncing your name, Vet Vandiver.
No worries. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Next, we are going to have Sam Alenikoff with College Aim.
Thanks so much, Kristina. I am going to share my screen real quick as well. Oops. If I can get it right. I'm certainly not the tech person on this call. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see. Okay, so College Aim is also a college access and success organization here in the Metro Atlanta area. We are on a little bit smaller of a scale than Achieve Atlanta, but do some similar work. We currently serve students within DeKalb County Public Schools. So looking at a different area, and they've directed our services to 3 schools with the greatest opportunity, being McNair High School, Towers High School, and Stone Mountain High School. Those students are incredible. They are wonderful. They're talented. They're thoughtful. They're bright. They're capable. Many of those students, most will be the first actually in their family to attend college, and most will be the first in their family to graduate from college. And they are ready to get going with this work. You'll see a few numbers here on the screen from 2019, 2020. We had just over 800 students across our high school programs that we served. 100% of our students are students of color. More than 90% of our students identify as Black or African American. 97% are Pell eligible. And we put our average high school GPA on here to give you a sense of the fact that we're not just working with students at the top of the GPA scale, at the bottom of the GPA scale. We really work with a range of students who have a variety of, or kind of their academic preparedness varies, and also their interests vary. So we have students who ultimately go into the arts, who go into engineering, and go into everything in between. We think this work is really, really important for a number of reasons, but this statistic kind of hones in on it for us. We see college as an engine to economic mobility and to social mobility for individuals. So 90% of kids who grow up in poverty but graduate from college will not live in poverty as adults. And on the previous slide, you saw that 97% of our students were Pell eligible. Most of them have some significant financial need. And we see college, and they see college as a way to, as a pathway to a different set of opportunities. As we drill down to what College AIM actually does, we have two main components to our programming: our access programs and our success programs. Our access programs help students get to college, and our success programs help students get through college. So on the access side, since we started in 2013, we've seen more than 700 students complete the College AIM curriculum. And over that time, 82% of our students have continued on to college. Collectively, they've earned over $64 million in grants and scholarship offers. For a little bit of a snapshot on last year, we had 173 curriculum graduates across our 3 high school partners in DeKalb County. Much of our work is on the college and financial aid counseling side. We do a lot of individual guidance as well as some group workshops on the 9th to 12th grade programming side. We do a lot of college exposure where we take students on college trips, both across the city and state, and then also long distance overnight trips across the country. And then we build relationships with colleges to help our students get into those schools and help our students really understand the process of getting there. You'll see a few stats on the bottom. Our average students accepted to between 2 and 3 colleges. Last year, almost $15 million were earned in grants and scholarships. You'll see our FAFSA completion rate, and again, over 83% of our students we project will enroll within a little over a year of high school graduation. On the success side, we continue to support students through college graduation. So we've had almost 600 students now enroll in college through our program, and we continue to support those students. We see that work happening in a couple different ways. The first piece is we actually have to get them there. So when students complete high school to when they enroll in college is a pretty tumultuous time over that summer. And estimates say that between 10 and 40% of students who come from low-income backgrounds will ultimately melt or not make it from high school where they intended to go to college to enrolling in college the following fall. So we have an intensive text-based intervention where we're constantly texting and reaching out to our students all summer. We have a number of workshops we run, and then we have some near-peer coaches who also help with that transition to college process. Once they enroll, our students receive regular check-ins from an individual mentor who gives them a lot of social, emotional, financial, and academic resources. So they connect to on-campus supports, and then they deploy some of our emergency funds as well as academic supports and career supports as well. A big piece of this is also not just that individual mentorship, but developing really a community of what we call our collegians, our current college students who support each other. So we have a number of different meetups. We have monthly workshops we run on various topics, and we allow those collegians to support each other as well as the supports that we provide. We've been particularly excited to see our students graduating from college as well. I know this is something that Achieve Atlanta and OneGoal kind of share similar excitement about. So our students have graduated from colleges across the city, state, and country. You'll see a few listed down there. But I should be really clear that when we talk about college, we talk about technical colleges, 2-year colleges, and 4-year colleges. We see all as providing really critical pathways for our students. We want to make sure we engage students where their interests lie, where their intentions lie, and help them achieve whatever goals they have set for themselves. So I'm excited to have more of this conversation moving forward, but hopefully that gives a little bit of context about who we are.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sam. And lastly, but not least, we have Taylor Ramsey from OneGoal.
Okay, can you see my slides? Okay, great. Well, first, it's so good to be here with friends and colleagues. Like Vet mentioned, we're a part of the Achieve Atlanta network, and Sam and I have known each other, I think, for close to a decade and been in this work together. So thank you, Tara, for making this space. I'll share a little bit about OneGoal, and then, yes, eager to jump into the conversation. So OneGoal is a national college and success organization. We serve close to 15,000 students across the country, including 400 right here in Metro Atlanta. We're a 3-year program. We start as a class that works intensively with juniors, continues to work with them as seniors, and then supports them across their first year of college or post-secondary pathway. And our mission is to close the degree divide. And when I say the degree divide, it's really this picture. And you've heard Vet and Sam mention this a bit. So in the country right now, if you are a student from a low-income background, you are about 3 times less likely to complete a post-secondary pathway than if you were from a high-income background. And we, this is a pre-pandemic statistic, I should add. And I think we know that given what has happened in the pandemic and the additional barriers it has surfaced for students from low-income backgrounds, we sadly expect this divide to potentially increase by anywhere from 5 to 10%. So this feels like an acute problem to solve and one that we are deeply committed to. For us here in Atlanta, I always think that this is some real important context to ground in. So we know that 60% of Atlanta's jobs, or really Georgia's jobs moving forward, will require some kind of post-secondary credential, either a 2-year, 4-year, or technical degree. And yet, if you look at students in Metro Atlanta, only about 29% of them are on track to receive this. And so when I think about Atlanta's booming economy, I ask myself who is going to get to be the beneficiaries of that type of economic opportunity. And sadly, right now, feel that too few of Atlanta's own children would actually be able to benefit in that way. I would say, fortunately, we don't think it has to stay this way. And I think Vet and Sam spoke to this so powerfully. There are plenty of examples and evidence that, in fact, this is a very solvable problem with the right type of intervention. And so, our vision is really that every young person across the country, but of course here in our beloved metro area, would have an equitable opportunity to achieve their greatest post-secondary aspiration. The gaps that we're seeing, in my opinion, are not gaps of aspiration or of aptitude, they are gaps of access, right, and of support. And so that's where I think organizations like ours come in. So there are plenty of awesome college access and success organizations across the country and here in our community. I would say there's a few things that we consider to be differentiators, and so I'll just talk through those quickly. So like I mentioned, we're a 3-year program. We start as a credit-bearing class with groups of juniors continuing into their senior year, and then again, we support them that whole first year in college or their post-secondary pathway. And I think this piece about being in the school day is really important to us. We eliminate that selection bias, so to speak, where we're going to students instead of having them come to us. And we think that part of why we see the gaps we see is because post-secondary support is not yet as robust and embedded part of the high school experience. Not because high schools don't want to focus on it, because they often don't have the time and resources to do so. So we're part of the school day. The second differentiator is that we're taught by an educator. So we really believe in the power of teachers and the relationships they hold, and also believe there's power in expanding the number of adults in a school building that are post-secondary experts and advocates. We believe strongly in a culturally responsive approach. Our curriculum is designed with culturally responsive pedagogy as the foundation. We think it's really important that students see themselves reflected in our curriculum and that their identities are affirmed. We're a tech flexible model, which has become really critical in the past year, as you can imagine. So our student curriculum is actually online. It's really dynamic and engaging and aimed specifically for kids of this age range and models the types of learning that kids might do in college themselves. Similar to SAM and College AIM, we also target kids that we call sort of in the mighty middle. So there's a lot of college access programs out there that target students who are very high performing, which is great. And sometimes interventions to target students who are very low performing and at risk of not graduating, which is also very important. But often kids in the middle get overlooked by interventions. And so these are kids where if we're actually going to close the degree divide, it's actually that group of students that needs to start going to college more so than they have had the opportunity so far. And then, as I've mentioned a couple times, similar to what Sam named, we provide a year of intensive coaching. So a person who has a prior relationship with our students texts, calls, and engages in one-on-one mentorship across their entire first year so that we can ensure that kids set foot into their post-secondary pathway that sophomore year, as that is so important. A little bit about our results. Nationally, we see that 86% of students in OneGoal programs enroll in a post-secondary institution and 76% persist a year later. In most cases, that is anywhere between 30 to 40% higher than students in this demographic and academic profile would typically experience. So that is quite remarkable. And we will keep going until we can see as many students as possible pursuing their greatest post-secondary aspirations. And with that, I think I can end there. Thank you.
Awesome, amazing presentations, everyone. I love all of the statistics, to be honest, that you guys are sharing, not only about the work that you are doing and the success that you've seen and kind of what your students are doing, but also why you're here, like what we're seeing in Metro Atlanta, the numbers around the problem, and really bringing really identifying the need of why your organizations are necessary. So I really appreciate that. And I also want to remind everyone here that if you can find all of our partners online in the educationatl.com website and schedule meetings with them directly, or figure out how you can find out more information about their program specifically as well. So that's something that's available to you. We had some questions come in the Q&A, and I will get to those, but we'll start with just kind of one driving question for all of the organizations to answer. I'll do a rotation and start with Sam and College Aim to respond to the question. Then we'll move on to Taylor and OneGoal, and we'll have Vet and Achieve Atlanta to respond to that question. And so this driving question is around, all of your organizations kind of championing post-secondary success. And there are a lot of nuances in defining what success is, what success looks like. There are also a lot of players in a student's life in terms of helping them to accomplish success: parents, educators, guidance counselors, program operators such as yourself, peers even. And so my question to you is, how can these different support systems work collaboratively together to support individual student needs and their personal success plans?
So I think the first thing that needs to be said is we need to work collaboratively together. There are so many students in the Metro Atlanta area who deserve support, who need support. Depending on how you define Metro Atlanta, and I know there are dozens of ways to define Metro Atlanta, we're looking at 500,000 plus students within the various school districts. If you expand it out even further, 1 million plus, et cetera, et cetera. So there are plenty of players that need to be at the table here, and those groups have to work together to define what student success looks like, but also how students can ultimately get there. I think the other piece of this conversation that may be really important to kind of frame it is that when we talk about student success at predominantly white high schools, when we talk about student success at upper middle class high schools, kids who have parents who went to college, kids like myself, quite frankly, there's never a question of, is college for everyone? It's always the assumption that college is for everyone. And success is defined as college, period. You can debate whether or not that's the right approach. I would tend to say it's probably not the right approach. But on the flip side, when you look at schools like those that College Aim works in, when you look at schools that are predominantly students that serve predominantly students of color, that serve lower income populations, students who would be the first in their family to go to college. When we ask, is college for everyone at those schools, it's clear what we're saying, especially as white educators like myself. We're saying college is for some people, but by asking it here, when we didn't ask it before, college might not be for you. And I think it's really critical that as we have these conversations, that is not the message that is being sent implicitly or explicitly. So I think as we have these conversations about what student success looks like, it's really important that it is not one way for one group of people and one way for another group of people. In terms of the collaboration, I think that's really central to College Aim's model. We have a close partnership with DeKalb County School District, as well as our partner schools. We see ourselves as members of the community, not directing what success looks like for our community, but learning equally from our students and from our teachers. But I think we also humbly see ourselves as someone who has something to contribute to this conversation about success. We see success as students having a whole set of opportunities. They can define what those opportunities are, but our goal as an organization is to work with our partners to provide as many opportunities as possible. I hope that contributes something to the conversation. I'm sure Taylor and Vet are going to have some more important things to say, and I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Sam, for your perspective. Taylor.
Yeah, no, I think Sam got right to the heart of it. And when I had reviewed this question as our opening question, I was like, right, there's really two parts of it, which is what is the definition of success? And then how do we get there around collaboration? And I think, Sam, you spoke to it. Yeah, exactly it. You know, I think that for us, right, when I think about success, I want kids to be able to pursue their highest post-secondary aspiration. However, I want it to be from a set of true choices and not a set of forced choices or narrow choices in the way that Sam described, because there have been systemic inequities or barriers that have actually already sort of limited the funnel of true opportunities that kids could have. And so I think whenever we are just even talking about post-secondary success, right away, there's a lot of things that are important to interrogate, right? Which is what types of choices and opportunities do we just assume will be and should be available for some kids and not for others? And so that's, you know, that's how I would talk about it. And I think as a sector, it is something for us to continue to interrogate. So, you know, I also think that right now, when we look at, you know, helping as many students as possible attain maximum job opportunity and economic mobility, yes, you know, to have a conversation that is narrowly about 4-year or 2-year or technical, it's really all of those things. And then, like I said, we have to be very curious about the patterns we're seeing about what kinds of opportunities are truly available for what types of students, right? And so that's how I would say that. So on the success piece, that's how I think about that. And I think it's a question we have to continue to come back to. And then I would just double click on what Sam said too, as well as on collaboration. You know, we have actually seen the needle move in Atlanta in some pretty positive ways. I would also say it's kind of stuck when it comes to enrollment or completion. We have seen, you know, some small movement, which when you're talking about 500,000 kids is not nothing. But I say that to say, this is hard. You know, this is not work that happens overnight. And I don't think it's the work of any one school or entity or nonprofit organization. We're not going to move the needle by ourselves. We're going to have to work in collaborations with students and parents and schools and nonprofits and districts and, frankly, institutions of higher ed, who also then ask themselves, what does it mean to be student ready? How do we both get students ready, and how are institutions of higher ed student ready, and how are we sort of meeting in the middle, so to speak? I would say yes, our work is impossible without the close collaborations of districts and school partners. And, you know, that's part of why our model really leverages the power of teachers, because we think that actually it's really important for teachers who understand their communities and have existing relationships with kids play a really critical role in actually sort of, you know, helping us move the needle, so to speak. So yeah, I think I would underscore what's been shared and just say that, you know, with anything that is as systemic as a challenge like helping more and more students, frankly, go to college, where college was not ultimately designed, you know, hundreds of, like, it wasn't really designed for students who may be first generation college students or students from low income backgrounds. I am a first generation college student, to try and, you know, kind of change the way our systems are laid out for kids. That's hard work and not the work of any one person or institution, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love what you shared about, you know, working to get post-secondary institutions ready for students, as well as students ready for, you know, these institutions. And, you know, I definitely want to talk a little bit more after Vet responds about what the work that you do with the high schools, the teachers, as well as post-secondary education institutions as well. But Vet, I'll let you go ahead and respond to that question.
Sure, and I will definitely agree with what Sam and Taylor said just about success and understanding how we define that, or, how we allow our students and families to define that for themselves. And I'll speak a little bit more about how we engage with students and families, but also with our partners. So Achieve Atlanta absolutely thrives on cross-sector collaboration, like I mentioned before, and we really do have kind of, this range of collaboration that starts with the high school level, and then there's the financial part of it and affordability, and then it goes through the college success. And so our partners work together and we work with them to provide advising and resources, but also financial support. And that goes for families as well. And I'll say that we've kind of always had an underlying emotional support aspect to our work, but through the pandemic, that has become the forefront of a lot of our work, because there have been so many students and families just struggling emotionally and mentally. So this past year, we've started offering free mental health services for our scholars and their immediate family members. And we do have scholars and family members who are participating in that and really appreciate having that service. So we found that, if families are focused on how they're going to feed their family, or what they're going to do to pay bills if they've lost their job in the pandemic, they're not really focused on helping their students to get through college. So we want that to be able to remain a focus for our families, and that means supporting them emotionally and in other ways. So we also engage our families just by keeping them informed on different updates in terms of college success and college access, and helping them with the different barriers that may exist, like FAFSA completion. We often have workshops for families on that, because a family member could help or prevent a student from earning their post-secondary credential. So we absolutely want it to be a situation where they are the reason why their student is able to earn their post-secondary degree.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. There are quite a few questions coming in the Q&A, so make sure some of them we will answer live, but feel free, panelists, to respond to some of them as well, to type an answer back to them. This question is that I'm going to bring is for anyone or everyone who wants to answer it. We've been talking about collaboration, and the importance of working with the student, their school, their families, the post-secondary institutions that they go to. I'll kind of pose a two-part question. One is from the Q&A in asking, can you provide an instance or an example where everything and everyone collaborated really well? And what did that look like for you? And then my second part of that question is this: it seems like your programs are a no-brainer, right? Like I feel like you guys really make the case very well why what you do is important. It seems like a no-brainer, but it's also pretty clear that everyone's not taking advantage of it. So what types of challenges and barriers do you see, I guess from high school specifically, since you kind of need to partner with the high school, what do you see as barriers for a high school to sign on, and accept and decide that, yeah, we want to bring you in to work in our schools? So, anyone who wants to respond to any part of that question.
Oh, I think I can take the collaboration question, because it's for me, an easy answer, which is our participation with the Achieve Atlanta initiative. And I will say, I think it's a really powerful example of what it means for, as Vet said, with cross-sector collaboration to really influence systems level change, right? And it's work that's happening over time, right? I think Achieve Atlanta, I won't want to speak for you, but knows this is a long game. So you can see really positive gains year over year, but this is a long game. And so, first by studying, well, what is the current state of affairs and the underlying factors there? How do you get all the relevant players at the table? So on a monthly basis, right, we're meeting as Achieve Atlanta, College Advising Corps, OneGoal, APS, and really having all stakeholders at the table and invested in this initiative. Everyone really understands what their role is and what our shared goals are. And it's not to say that there aren't challenges in execution, because that's the nature of things, right? Like, you know, I mean, gosh, this year in particular, but then to have that group of stakeholders that can problem solve at every step of the way is incredibly powerful. And I just think from a systems level view, I think it's a very powerful model. And we, I think, have been, you know, tremendously blessed to essentially be a part of this, because I think it's just like, it gives me a good mental model of the types of ways I would want us to work in other districts as well.
Thanks, Taylor.
I'm happy to jump in on the collaboration. Yvette, I saw you unmute if you want to go for it first.
No, I was just going to say that I agree with what Taylor said. I know she was just sharing some of Achieve Atlanta's perspective, but absolutely, Taylor. Our partnerships are very strong, and, you know, I've only been on the Achieve Atlanta team for about 1.5 years, but something I absolutely admire is how strong our partnerships are with organizations like OneGoal in Atlanta Public Schools, because it does make all the difference.
So I'll kind of share 2 quick instances of collaboration. So College AIM's origin story or founding came from my experience as a teacher in the classroom. So I was a teacher at Towers High School beginning in fall of 2011, and pretty quickly recognized that our students had these incredible talents and capabilities. I mean, I wasn't the only one recognizing this. Every teacher realizes that about their students, but also recognized how thin our staff and our faculty was stretched. So our school counselors had caseloads of 300 plus students and couldn't possibly get to everyone to provide the services that they wanted to provide and could have provided, but just didn't have the bandwidth to provide. Teachers were teaching 3 and 4 different preps. And when you're teaching 3 and 4 different preps and you have 100 plus students, you don't have time to personally counsel every single one of them through the college process. So College AIM was founded as a collaboration between teachers, between students who told us this is what we need and this is what we want, between parents who came to my classroom during back to school nights or whatever every different school calls them, saying, how do I help my kid get to college? So it started because we had those different perspectives at the table, and it grew out of that joint understanding of the need that existed. I think I'll fast forward 5 or so years in College AIM's development when we launched our program first at McNair High School. And that collaboration was a bit different because I was not a teacher there. We didn't start with a teacher on the ground, and may look a little bit more like what collaboration could look like if College AIM was to enter a new school building. So that worked because there was student demand and parent demand for the services. The administration and the counselors knew that students wanted support in the college prep, college access, college success realm. It also worked because we had folks on the other side of the table at United Way and a corporate sponsor that came on board and said, we also understand this need and we want to provide funds and provide resources to make this happen. And it also happened because the DeKalb County School District and McNair High School also had joint kind of investment in that need and investment in students. So you had to have these different players at the table, students and parents who wanted it. You had to have a school and a district that was invested. And we also had to have folks who wanted to pay for it. And that's a piece of the work too. And College AIM really is able to be particularly effective when we have all of those different collaborators and key stakeholders at the table driving the work. And I hope that continues to happen. I think that is happening with other organizations besides College AIM. And I'm excited that there are all these different stakeholders that want college access work to happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I'm so glad that you talked about, I guess, what is needed from the different stakeholders in order to make this work. And I think that that's probably even a better way to frame that second part of my question is, you know, rather than what's the challenge, you know, in schools, not taking advantage of this, but rather what do they need? You know, like what does a school who would love to invite Achieve Atlanta, OneGoal, College AIM to be a part of their students' post-secondary support, what do they need to make this happen? You know, what are some of the things that they kind of need to put in place or have? Taylor, we can't hear you. All right.
All right. come on, I know. You would think after a year I would have this mastered. I would say, you know, what Sam just named, I think is really true. And often there's the statistic shared that, you know, students in a traditional public high school will receive about 38 minutes of individualized post-secondary advising. You might hear 42 minutes, but not a lot, right, is the headline. And not because high schools don't deeply care about providing it, they simply do not have the resources, right? Our high schools are actually not resourced to provide very intense post-secondary advising. I'll just tell a quick story. I had an opportunity to sit in at a private school's 9th grade parent meeting on the college pathway, in which this private school outlined everything they would do to help students get to college. First of all, the entire high school is designed to do just that, to get kids into college and to get them in the most elite selective colleges out there. And I mean, kids are having almost weekly personalized advising sessions to help them do that. I mean, so I named that story. I could go into much more detail, but I won't, to just outline like how disparate, you know, the experiences are and how, you know, the playing field is not equal. We already know that. So I'll say that. So I would say that I think, Sam, you named it really nicely in terms of all the things. And you need high schools who have identified this as a need. And I would say most high schools have. I also would name, and I think this is really important for us to understand in the state of Georgia, that post-secondary outcomes are actually not a part of what a high school is ultimately held accountable for. They care about it deeply, but they are not held accountable, nor are they given a ton of resources or incentives to pursue that. And so in a list of priorities, sometimes as a high school, it can be hard to prioritize. So I'd say by and large, though, schools do prioritize it. And then it does become an issue of, can we resource this program? Do we have the desire and the commitment? Can we resource it? Do we see the impact and the results, which is really fair, and schools should be asking that question. That to me is more, it's less a desire or, you know, lack of alignment around the importance of it, but more, you know, can a school fundamentally sort of shift or change the way they operate to make more space for this? And I would say in good news, I think increasingly more high schools are able to do that, especially if there's a model that could help them realize those goals that they have.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to shift a little bit and kind of bring in the COVID-19 elephant that's in every room and a part of every discussion. It's also one of our questions here, but, you know, would love to kind of know, how has, you know, virtual learning and COVID-19 impacted your programs and the way that you know, work and support students? And how have you had to kind of think or operate differently to support students, teachers, parents, and things of that nature?
Yeah, I can go first on this one. So I think most of our students, like I'm sure everyone else, are feeling extreme Zoom fatigue and just virtual fatigue. And so while a lot of our work has shifted to virtual, we've had to be very mindful about what we absolutely need to have as a virtual event versus a different way we can communicate it. So for things that have not felt like they needed to be a full event or meeting, we've done a lot of social media campaigns because many students are on social media all day, especially during the times when maybe they weren't able to go outside as freely. And so many of our students have engaged with us on Instagram. Our Instagram following has increased drastically over the past year, with it being mostly APS students and college students that are following us. So we do a lot of fun interactive games and polls on Instagram. We also, you know, do a lot of different campaigns just to show our support for students and to spotlight students that are doing different things during this time. So I would say we've shifted online, but we've been very mindful about how we display things online.
Yeah. I don't know if Taylor or Sam, if you have anything additional to add.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, oh, this is like a whole different panel, but important question. So, I mean, let me just first say that there is no question that the class of 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, maybe even beyond, the pandemic is going to profoundly change their post-secondary pathway and the number of options they have, full stop. There are going to need to be federal and state interventions and responses to this. In the form of financial aid, et cetera. I mean, the response and how we then help what will be a group of students who get off their post-secondary path, how we help them get back on, kind of at every layer, how we think about that is going to be big. And policymakers, I'm sure, are thinking about this, and us in the college access space are obviously thinking about this. So that's just huge. I mean, we very quickly, very tactically shifted our program online last summer. So we have been teaching our daily class to our juniors and seniors online since this time last year. We have not been in person in any of our students. Community building is a big part of our program, and I would say the special sauce as well. We have still, done many creative things to do that, and it is not the same, right? Like, I wish I could say it was the same, and it's not. So we've really just tried to meet the moment. And, my team and I just said, we are going to be focused on outcomes and have to be extraordinarily flexible along the way. That's what we're asking of students. That's what we ask of ourselves. On the post-secondary side of things, yes, to continue our, remote coaching, because they're in their campuses across the country. Students are dealing with loneliness. I had a conversation with a kid on December 23rd. The student was going to continue to live in their dorm over the holiday break, and described what it was like that first semester as a freshman, right? To be on campus, but primarily taking classes like this and actually having not met very many of her new classmates. There was a sadness there that we just have to sit in with students and I think acknowledge, and to tell them that there are brighter days ahead, because I believe that there are. And I think that giving hope, I'll just say too, I remember asking a student this past summer, what do you most need from us? And this 18-year-old in all her wisdom said, hope. And I was like, that's exactly right. She's like, I need hope. I need hope that, my college experience is not going to evaporate and that there's going to be more fun ahead. So, it has been about mental health. We've also brought on mental health professionals to work with our students. It's about the socio-emotional piece. It's about financial piece. Kids need more money right now, like real talk. And it's about, trying to meet this moment. And I think some beautiful things have been unlocked as well. In terms of, we are resilient and we can do hard things. We knew that already, but, there's been some technical adjustments that have to get made. And now there are going to have to be some longer, like I said, interventions and responses that need to get made on a policy level as well as a programmatic level, at least over the next 3 years.
Yeah, we work with kids a lot as well. And I can just share that I am in awe at the strength of, anyone who is in middle school, high school, college student right now. They are exhibiting it. And honestly, they are stepping up and exhibiting strength that unfortunately they shouldn't be asked to, do. So it's kind of like the two sides of the coin where you can recognize and acknowledge, all of the amazingness that young people today have. But then you also, have to think about the fact that you wish that they could really just be young people, like they can really just be a high school student or a normal college student. And so, yeah, that is something heavy that we do have to sit with. Sam, I saw that you were getting ready to go on mute. So I don't know if you wanted to respond to this COVID question.
I don't want to simply repeat, but College AIM also has moved everything virtual, supports both for students in high school and students in college. We've developed an emergency fund, like I think most folks have. We focused on the mental health issues as well. I think Taylor, I really loved when Taylor said, meet the moment, because I think that's been our approach as well. And the story that Taylor, that you shared about a student just saying they need hope right now, and that December 23rd story really, really resonate with me. College AIM, one of our core values since the start has been that we are pushy with positivity, we like to say. So we are constantly, we're just endlessly persistent, telling kids that they have a chance, that there is going to be light at the end of this tunnel. And that's been who we've been from the start. One of our students early on, when I was just a teacher teaching at Towers High School, he said, Mr. A chased me down and I couldn't run fast enough, so he caught up with me, and that's how I ended up in college. He says that on one of our videos. So I'm not quoting perfectly, but paraphrasing. And that approach, I think, has ended up being central to who we are. We just continue pushing and pushing and pushing. And this moment has called for more persistence from our side as organizations. But if we're not willing to be more persistent, then we shouldn't be in this work in the first place. And I'd say all of our organizations are there. It calls for more, and I'm confident that we are providing more.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we might have time for one, maybe two more questions. So my second question, I'm pulling from or this next question, sorry, I'm pulling from the Q&A. And it is around, I would say that now, in light of COVID and everything that students are seeing, some students are questioning, do I need to go to college? Do I need a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, tech degree? Can I just start my own business on Instagram? They're beginning to think that they might think that they don't need to go to college, is not for them. But as to kind of bring in this question asked in the Q&A, the rising costs of college and increasing student debt are also factors that might make a student and a family, reconsider college or believe that college isn't for them. So, the curiosity is what types of conversations do you have with students who might be, thinking that college is not for them, or college might not be advisable for them, and how has it impacted your work overall?
I'll start with Taylor, do you want to start?
No, go for it.
Okay. Just going to say that I think this is definitely a reality for all of our organizations and, the country as a whole, that college is expensive and it's getting more expensive. And we know student debt is a real issue that's, being debated even on a national level right now. And so, for our organization, we do try to make families aware of the current financial aid opportunities, because for many of the families that we serve, they aren't aware of the different options that are out there in terms of the Pell Grant, which we know Pell Grant is often not enough for many students, but it does help along with our scholarship and with other scholarships. So for many of the students that we work with, it's not a matter of it not being affordable just based on what their economic level is, but it's a matter of not being aware of or having access to the different financial aid options. So we do try to first make people aware of those options before they just cross out college as not being an option because of the affordability.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sam, I watched your interview with Ian for this Terra Expo, and I think he asked you a question like, is college still worth it or important? And I was so glad you're like, yes, just like emphatically yes. But, I think there's complexity to that answer, right? There's like a couple different pieces of this whole kind of question or debate. So as we were talking about at the top of this conversation, with us, part of what we try and help students understand in our program is actually just, let's give you a lot of information. I want students to understand that with each increasing level of education you get, it is still the case that more and more jobs are available to you and more economic opportunity and mobility is available to you. I want you to just know that. Do you have to go to a 2-year, a 4-year, or technical? That depends a lot about what you want to do long-term, right? So that's a important question to ask yourself. What do I want to do? But I think, again, to come back and harken back to what we talked about at the top of the call, I do think it's important for us to ask, like, which students are we asking this question of and why? Why do we still see students and families in the highest income levels in America paying millions of dollars to help their kids get into college? Because it is not just, because college too is not just about job opportunity, it's also a formative milestone experience for young people, right? Like sometimes I think we forget that too. When I think about college, I think about, yes, the skills I developed and the fact that I was then available. There's a ton of jobs I can't apply for, cannot apply for unless I have. Now we can talk about that. That's a different panel too. Sometimes is it necessary, but right now in our current structure it is. It's also the experience of it. It's the coming of age experience. So I don't want to neglect that part. But, I think it's an important and complex question. And again, what I hope is students and families have access to information around what post-secondary opportunities can get you connected to what you want to do long-term and the affordability piece, which is pretty complicated. And I think it's a big part of, we almost glossed over that piece. That's a big part of what our organizations help families navigate, is simply just understanding the financial obligation and then making informed choices. So, yeah.
Yeah, I want to echo what the other folks on this panel have said. I think there are a couple things that maybe I can add from College Aim's perspective. The first session we have with students in 9th grade when they walk into a workshop with us is our Why College session. And we walk them through answering this question so that we're not just telling them, but they feel like they can walk away from that conversation answering this for themselves. And we talk about the finances of it and the fact that over the course of your lifetime, if you have a bachelor's degree, you're likely to earn $1 million more than if you don't have a bachelor's degree. That's a fact that a lot of people kind of cite quite frequently. We talk them through what your earnings are going to be at each degree level. And as Taylor said, every degree you add on, your opportunities for social mobility increase. But then we talk about the non-financial reasons to go to college, which Taylor also enumerated. I think something that Vet said that was really important as well is college can be affordable. Yes, there are certainly huge gaps in affordability that need to be addressed. But even for low-income students who have what we say have an EFC, this language is going away in a year, but an EFC, an expected family contribution of 0 when they fill out the FAFSA, college can be affordable. In Georgia, if you look at the cost of community colleges in our area, so I'm thinking of the Georgia State University perimeter colleges. If you look at the cost per credit, a full Pell Grant will more than cover the total cost of attendance semester over semester. So if you want to go to a place where you're going to have 0 debt, that's possible at a 2-year level, earn the Hope Scholarship, and you can then go and get a 4-year degree, also debt-free. Obviously not living on campus, there are other expenses, et cetera, but there are ways to do it. At a technical school, there are ways to do it as well. So we make sure, just like we heard Vet and Taylor talk about, that we share all of these options on the front end so that students don't get to their senior year and say, college is too expensive. I think the other piece of this answer that's really critical that everybody's alluded to is the policy side. And that's something that College Aim is pretty new to. But over the last year, we've gotten more and more involved in advocacy work to ensure that policies adequately and equitably support our students. If you look at the Pell Grant, which is the amount of money that you get from completing FAFSA, you can access from completing FAFSA, the free money the government will give you. That amount is now about $6,500 per year. The cost of attendance, though, has increased so much more rapidly than the amount of that Pell Grant since its founding. So if you look back at the mid to late 70s, that was when the Pell Grant's buying power was at its peak. The Pell Grant would cover more than 70% of the cost of tuition, room, and board at your average 4-year public school. Now that number is 28%. So the buying power is 1/3 of what it was when it was at its peak. So there's a lot of movement out there right now, and it's in a number of kind of proposals around college affordability, double the Pell Grant right now, which would make its buying power 56% of the average 4-year tuition, room, and board. That's getting us there. There's also conversations about free college. I think those are 2 different layers that need to be added together. But there's a lot that needs to be done on the policy side in order to make college more affordable for our students. So this doesn't even have to be a question they're asking themselves, because there's no reason that a kid that one of our organizations serves should have to ask, can I go to college because of money? But the kid that I was when I was in high school never even had to ask that question in the first place. That's a problem and that needs to change.
Wow. I just want to say thank you all so much for participating in this panel. I personally learned a lot from hearing your, thoughtful responses and your responses that just prove that you've been invested in this work for years. And so I appreciate all that you're doing in Metro Atlanta. You've given me language and new things that I can share with the young people in my life who are thinking about college. And so I appreciate that. I would love it if you all could even just type in the chat where people can find out more about you or your organization, what your websites are. And while they're doing that, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. As a reminder, we will be having another live virtual session this evening at 5 o'clock. I will be moderating that session as well. And the 5 o'clock session is on the topic of innovative school models. So we'll have another amazing group of panelists who have, maybe taken non-traditional or untraditional ways to have school, and we'll learn about what that looks like for them, what challenges they've seen, what successes they've seen, and why you might want to consider thinking outside of the box when you think about what school can be, how it can operate, and what it should look like. So looking forward to that panel discussion. Thanks again, Sam, Taylor, Vet, for being a part of our afternoon panel. And I hope you all have an amazing day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.